this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the Golden Halo Mobius, which you can see I'm wearing right here. This is a gorgeous one skein crochet pattern. You can see there's lots of beautiful stitches involved, and you can wear it a variety of ways. Right now I'm wearing it as a simple cowl so it won't blow off in that wind we're having, or if you'd like to, when the weather gets bad, you can pull one edge up here as a hood. And of course, you can pull it down over your shoulders and wear it more as a wrap or sort of a shawl look. There is one twist, which makes it a Mobius, so let's take a look at what we used to make this pattern. To make the Golden Halo Mobius, you'll need a USN 10mm crochet hook. This one is by Susan Bates. You'll also need one skein, or I should say one O'Go, of Caron Colorama Halo O'Go. This is a 5 bulky weight yarn. Each skein has 481 yards, and we use almost the entire skein on this project. To make this one, I use the colorway Beeswax Frost, but of course, you can use any color you like. You'll also need your standard crochet supplies. Scissors, a yarn needle, and stitch markers can come in handy too. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is open up our yarn. Since this is a new style of yarn, I thought I'd go ahead and show that as well. You can see it's got 2 paper labels on it here, so we can take those on off. This top one, the larger one, has all your yarn information, so if you're someone who likes to keep your labels, then that's the one you'll want to keep. Just trying to find the seam here. There it is. So we'll just carefully open that one up right there and set that aside. Then you can see how our colors meet down here where it's just a little bit thinner. That's where we know our ends are going to be. So we're just going to gently pull those apart until we reveal, and it's kind of hard to see here, but there is just a little piece of plastic string that runs throughout the O'Go to hold it all together. And there's a little tab there that holds the plastic together. So what I like to do is hold on to that tab. It's just a good place to grip to. Oh, and then usually I have to cut it, but this one popped right open. So after you get it cut or it pops open, you can just pull that string right on out and start crocheting. If you find that the plastic cord shrinks up in there and you're not able to get it out, it's not a problem. You want to start crocheting from the outside end, not the inside end. So as we do that, the plastic cord will be revealed and you can pull it out at a later time. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to start from the lighter end. So I've added a little piece of colored paper here so that it shows up a little better as we make our stitches. This pattern starts with foundation double crochet. So to make a row of foundation double crochet, I'm going to start with the slip knot on my hook here. It is a big hook. This is a bigger hook size than what's recommended for this yarn, but I think it works well with this pattern and gives it more of an open, lacier look. So with the slip knot on our hook, I'm going to go ahead and chain 2. Then I am going to yarn over and insert my hook in the first of those chains that I made. Yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 1 loop. That loop right there that I just pulled through becomes the chain at the bottom of my first stitch, and now I'm ready to finish my double crochet. Yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. To make the subsequent foundation double crochet stitches, I'll yarn over, find that chain at the bottom of the previous stitch. So those 2 loops right at the bottom of the previous stitch right there. So we've got our active loop, our yarn over, and we've inserted the hook under those 2 loops. So then we yarn over and pull up our loop. Now that will become the chain at the bottom of our next stitch here, the one we're currently working on. So we yarn over and pull through just that one to start our double crochet. Yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2. So we just continue making foundation double crochets just like that until we have a total of 102. Now I'm making a smaller sample here today, but after you've finished making your 102 foundation double crochets, we're going to want to pull up a couple of stitch markers, and ideally they'll be in different colors. It just makes it a little easier to keep track. So I'm going to take my yellow one and put it in the top of that very first foundation double crochet I made. Then I'm going to use my blue one, which I like to remember as blue bottom, and put it in the bottom of that very first foundation double crochet that we made. There we are. And then we can come over here, and this is where we get to make that Mobius. We want to sort of lay out our row here as if we were going to join it in the round, which essentially we're going to do. And normally to join a row of foundation double crochet to work in the round, we would slip stitch in the top of that first double crochet we made. So the first things first, we want to sort of lay out our row really nicely here so that we know it doesn't have any twists in it. Then we bring it up as if to slip stitch into that first stitch we made, and then we want to flip that right on over so that now the bottom of that stitch is facing up. What we're going to do is we're going to double crochet in the bottom of that very first stitch. We're not going to slip stitch yet. We're going to start crocheting right into there. So this is where those colored stitch markers really come in handy. I'm going to lay that down for just a second here so I can get my hook ready to make that stitch. So I get my yarn over already on there, kind of hold it in place. Bring up that very first stitch around nice and even, and then just flip it up right towards you. Insert your hook right in the bottom of that stitch under those same 2 loops that you would have used, to pull through and make those stitches. And then, this part's a little fiddly, but you just kind of yarn over and finish that double crochet right there in the bottom of that stitch. Now you can go ahead and take that stitch marker out and just set it aside for later. And then we're going to continue by double crocheting in the bottom of each stitch around. So there was in the bottom of that one, we just go right to the next one. And this is what I love about doing the foundation double crochets for this, because it gives such a really great bottom of the stitch here to work into. But for now, we just continue to double crochet in the bottom of each stitch around. With that twist in there, it'll all work out as you go around, and I'll see you as we get towards the end here of round 1. So as you continue to crochet around your Mobius, you'll notice that round 1 here kind of has 2 rounds to it, but we haven't joined yet, so we're ready to do that now. I've worked into the bottom of all of those stitches, and now I still have that top of that very first stitch we made marked. This is where we started working to the bottom. We've come all the way around. What we want to do now is find that stitch marker, and whereas before we flipped it down, now we're going to flip it right back up so that we can join with the slip stitch to the top of that very first stitch we made. So we just go ahead and join with a slip stitch, and then we're ready for round 2. And you can see we've created, I lay it out here a little bit, you can see there is that Mobius twist. So now we can go ahead and use that stitch marker to mark the first stitch of every round. And when we come to the end, when it's time to weave in our ends, we've got this end right here, but we've got this gap. So you can take your original tail end and just, before you weave it in, cinch it to the bottom of that row right there, and that will close that gap up right there. Then we're ready to begin round 2. Okay, round 2 is pretty easy. We start with a chain 1, and then we simply back post half double crochet in each stitch around. Because of the Mobius, now that we've got it all joined, it will take us all the way around both sides before we come back to this first stitch. So we've got our chain 1 made. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to do a back post half double crochet. So I want to come from behind our fabric. That stitch marker really wants to be in the way. So let's go ahead and take that guy out there. We'll go ahead and put him in the top of this back post half double crochet as soon as we've got it finished. So we've got that chain 2 that we made right there. It makes it a little easier, something to sort of come in between our stitch and that the chain 2 there. So we want to come from behind, because it is a back post half double crochet. Go down on the other side of the post so that our hook comes out on the back of our fabric. Yarn over, pull our loop all the way through that fabric so we've got it nice and clear. So we've got our active loop, our yarn over, and the loop we just pulled up around that stitch. So since it's a half double crochet, all we do is yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops to finish. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark that first stitch there with our stitch marker, and then we just continue all the way around. Let's do a couple more together. We yarn over, find the next stitch, come from behind, go around the post of that stitch, yarn over and pull up our loop till it's nice and clear there. Yarn over and pull through 2 and 3, all 3 of them there for the half double crochet. Yarn over, go to the next stitch, come from behind our fabric, go around that post, yarn over and pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. So we follow our stitches, just back post half double crochet in each stitch around until you get back to that first marked stitch for this round. Now, one thing you'll notice if we look at our fabric here, you can see how those post stitches are showing up on this side, but we're not seeing them down here. That's because they're on the other side. That's the nature of a Mobius, and one of the reasons it's so important to make sure that your stitches look good from both sides of the fabric is because at any given time, half of what you'll see is actually the back sides of those stitches. So after you've gotten all the way back around to that first stitch, we simply join with a slip stitch, and then we're ready for round 3. In round 3, we're going to be making our crossed stitches. So we're going to start with a chain of 2 that's not going to count as a stitch. Then we are going to skip 2 stitches. So since this doesn't count as a stitch, we're going to skip the first stitch and the second stitch. Then we double crochet in that next stitch. So the third stitch of the round here to begin. So there's our double crochet. Then we chain 1, and then we double crochet again in the first skipped stitch. So that's the one that will have our original stitch marker. And we do that in front of the other double crochet. So we want to sort of push that other double crochet out of the way when we do that crossed stitch. We don't want to go around it. So now that we've made that sort of X there, I want to go ahead and move this stitch marker up. Remember, it wasn't that chain 2, it's that first double crochet we made right there, the one that goes behind. So we want to put our stitch marker right into that one. Then we do that repeat again. This is the last stitch going, across our row that we stitched into. So now we need to skip the next 2 stitches, kind of straighten out that Mobius if you need to. So 1 and 2, and double crochet in the stitch after that. There we go. Then we chain 1 and double crochet in the first skipped stitch. We skipped 2 of them, 1, 2, or we can look at right after the last stitch we worked into there. We just want to go into the first one of those we just skipped and work another double crochet. And you can see how I really push all those stitches out of the way behind my work so that I can just go ahead and make that one all by itself. So let's do that repeat one more time, and then we'll do that all the way around. Find that last stitch we worked into there, skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, double crochet in the stitch after that, chain 1, and then you can just push all that right out of the way and find that first skipped stitch and double crochet right into there. And that is our repeat that takes us all the way around round 3. So when you get to the end of round 3, you'll end here having finished that crossed over stitch, and then you'll be able to slip stitch right to that very first stitch of the round with your stitch marker in it. I can't emphasize enough how handy it is to keep a stitch marker in the first stitch of each round for this pattern. Now round 4 is going to be a little different, so that all said, let's take the stitch marker out for a second and set it aside. And what we want to do is we want to slip stitch into that first chain space. So we can kind of pull our stitches apart here. So we've got that chain 1 space. We're just going to slip stitch right into there. So we begin with a chainless starting double crochet and 2 double crochets worked right into this first chain space. So I'm going to pull my loop up to the height of a double crochet approximately, secure the top of that loop with my finger on my hook, yarn over with that loop itself, insert my hook right into that chain space, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through that loop and behind the yarn over, then we can release that last loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So this will be sort of a double crochet substitute. If you would prefer to chain 3 or use a different double crochet substitute, that is totally fine. We just want to create basically a double crochet. Then we need to make 2 double crochets into that same chain space. So we just go right into that space for 1 and 2. Then we skip the next 2 stitches and find that next chain space and work 3 double crochets right into there. That's our repeat for this round. We skip the actual stitches and just work 3 double crochets into each chain 1 space. Remember, there aren't chain 1 spaces between those X's, just in the middle. So you'll skip 2 stitches, sort of the last X and the beginning part of the X of each set, to work just into those chain spaces. So work 3 double crochets into each chain 1 space around, and then I'll see you at the end of round 4. After you've worked your way around round 4, working 3 double crochets into each chain 1 space, we again join with a slip stitch, this time in the top of that chainless starting double crochet or whatever you used for your first double crochet. For round 5, we're just going to be chaining 1, and then we work a front post double crochet in each stitch around. I like mixing up the back post and the front post because, as I showed you before, only one's going to show up on each side. So we're going to start. We yarn over. Front post double crochet means we come from the front of the fabric, come around the back, and pop that hook up back to the front of the fabric again. Then we yarn over, pull that loop all the way around that post, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2, because now we're doing double crochets rather than half double crochets. I still want to go ahead and move that stitch marker up to that very first stitch. Then we just continue around. Let's do a couple more together. I yarn over, find the next stitch, come in from the side, from the front of the fabric, bring the hook back around that post to the front of the fabric again, yarn over and pull up my loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over, insert hook along the side, bring it back to the front, yarn over, pull up a loop, and finish the double crochet. So simply continue to make front post double crochets around each stitch around, and then of course join with a slip stitch in the very first one. So here you can see I've finished round 5, and all the action from the side you're crocheting from just kind of looks like a continuation, but on the back we've got that ridge of stitches again, which will then show up in the bottom half of our Mobius. So now we're ready to begin round 6. And round 6 is as simple as they come. We're going to start with our chainless starting double crochet, or whichever double crochet substitute you prefer. You can stick with just a standard chain 3 if you like. I just prefer this one, the look it gives in the final project. But after that, we're simply going to double crochet in each stitch around. Standard double crochets worked right into the top of each stitch. So I've got my stitch marker there in the top of my first one. Get the right end of the hook in there. There we go. And then we just go around and double crochet in each stitch around, joining to the very first one when you get to the end. So I'll see you at the end of round 6. So after round 6, we're ready to begin round 7. We're going to start round 7 with another chain 2 that does not count as our first stitch. So we won't put our stitch marker in the top of that chain 2. We are going to double crochet in the first stitch and count that as our first stitch of the round. That said, we're not going to be just double crocheting in this one. That chain 2 and double crochet are going to count as our first double crochet 2 together cluster. We just want to mark the top of that double crochet itself because that's what we're going to join to when we come around here. So to continue around for this round, we chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then double crochet 2 together, but working both legs, if you will, of that double crochet 2 together in that same stitch. That's what makes it a cluster rather than a decrease. So let's make our first double crochet 2 together cluster together. We're going to yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Stop with 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over again, go back into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops left on the hook. And that is our double crochet 2 together cluster. It's like a decrease, but it's all worked into that same one stitch. So that's our repeat. We chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet 2 together in the next stitch. Then chain 1 and skip 1 again. The repeat itself actually ends on the chain 1 and skip 1. So you'll be skipping the very last stitch of the round. Otherwise, we just continue making these stitches all the way around for round 7. So here I am at the end of round 7. You can see I chain 1 and I want to skip that last stitch of the round before I join to my first stitch here with my slip stitch. Then I'm ready to begin round 8, which is the last round of our rounds repeat. So we're going to start with a chainless starting double crochet again in that first stitch, or again, whatever you prefer to substitute with for your first double crochet of a round. There are a few different alternatives out there running around, and of course, the traditional chain 3. So I'm going to move my stitch marker on up to the top of that stitch, or whatever stitch you're using. You'll want to move that up as well. And then we're just going to even things out again. We're going to double crochet. We've got our first double crochet in that first stitch. So now we want to double crochet right into that chain 1 space. Then we just double crochet in the next stitch and double crochet in the next chain space. And continue that all the way around. And I'll see you at the end of round 8. Now, as I mentioned, round 8 is the last round of our rounds repeat. After we finish round 8, we repeat rounds 2 through 8 again. So let's go ahead and take a look at that here on the finished cowl, or on the finished Mobius, I should say. Here you can see our lightest rows are where we began, that very first round of double crochet. Then we had the round of back post half double crochet. That's round 2, and that began our repeat. Then round 3, we had those crossed stitches. In round 4, we worked 3 double crochets into each one of those chain 1 spaces. In round 5, we worked a front post double crochet around each stitch. It's actually down here. It hides a little bit. That front post double crochet pushes those tops of those stitches behind here. Then we've got round 6 right here, simple round of double crochet. Round 7, there's those double crochet 2 together clusters. And then round 8 is another round of double crochet. Here you can see I worked into each of those stitches and those chain spaces. Then there's that repeat again. Round 2 with our back post half double crochets. Round 3 with our crossed stitches. Round 4 working 3 double crochets into each chain 1. And of course 5, 6, 7, and 8 again. We finish it off with one last round, which is simply chain 1 and then single crochet and chain 1 in each stitch around. So let's make just a little bit of that together. So for our very last round, as I say, we chain 1, that's our turning chain, and then we're going to single crochet and chain 1 in each stitch around. So let me go ahead and put a stitch marker here in this first single crochet. And then let's make a few more of those. We just go to the next stitch, single crochet, chain 1. Next stitch, single crochet, chain 1. And we do that all the way around. This just adds a little bit more of a decorative element. You can see how that chain 1 makes that edging just a little bit more interesting than if it was a simple round of single crochet. After you get all the way around, we simply join with a slip stitch to that first one or do a seamless join, and you'll be all finished with your Golden Halo Mobius. And that's how to crochet the Golden Halo Mobius. This pattern uses a stitch multiple of 6, so if you'd like to adjust the size, you can do that to make it larger or smaller. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.